to us? Where is our honor?
Honor is dead, but I'll see what I can do.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Podcasts Are Dead, but we'll see what we can do. This is episode 2. I am Derek Sanders, and this is my co-host, Ian Oliver.
How's it going? I think we have to address the elephant in the room right away.
Yeah.
So we'll just kind of get that out of the way. Obviously, the elephant in the room being we got a new camera. The quality is a little bit better than our last one. We apologize for kind of the grainy quality and everything last podcast, but we are, it's a work in progress, and we're hoping to improve little bit by little bit as we go. Also, we changed our name, changed the whole company structure of the company and everything around. We unfortunately had to cut ties with our third member. And yeah, it was amicable enough. He just had to kind of go his own way. We had to go our own way.
Yep.
And it was split from there. So we just decided to retire the Three Dragons name and move forward. Just Derek and I, as Dueling Quills Media, we're just as committed as ever to making sure we continue to push out content, continue with the Ridgeton Tales. We're both working on our own works and everything right now. Mm-hmm. So, and continue to bring the podcast to you guys as well. So if you've been along, all three of you that have read the Ridgeton Tales and watched the podcast, we appreciate you guys for sticking with this so far. It should be quite a bit smoother from here on out with just the two of us and getting down to a better schedule and everything. So we know it's been a little bit rocky, like I said, for all three of you that have watched and read all of our stuff. But we do appreciate everybody so far.
Yep, and I just want to give credit to Ian. He's the one that came up with our new name, Dueling Quills. It was awesome, and it just flows perfectly with the two of us, and obviously writing is our thing. So I personally think it's a step in the right direction. Better, it's an improvement over the previous.
I was never a fan of Three Dragons.
Yeah.
I was outvoted.
Yeah.
So, to be fair, I didn't voice my opinion on it either because I knew the other two really liked it. So I didn't want to be the turd in the punch bowl, kind of ruining it for everybody else. So I just went along with it. But I do agree Dueling Quills is a much better name, mainly because I thought of it and brought it forward.
Yeah.
So
I
generally think when I come up with an idea, it's better than what other people are coming up with. So
yeah, I agree. So here
That's why we work well together. That's what we have to trim the fat out of here.
Yeah.
That's why him and I are working good together.
Yep. So here we are, Dueling Quills, and
Podcasts Are Dead, but we'll see what we can do.
We're
going to talk a little bit, I think, about kind of what we're working on, what we're reading, what we're watching, kind of what's going on with us. With Dueling Quills and outside of Dueling Quills a little bit as well. Derek, I'll let you kick off. What are you watching anything right now? Reading anything right now? What are you working on?
Yeah.
Obviously, the Ridgeton Tales is something where Derek and I are constant working on it. We're world building, outlining for future chapters, outlining for future arcs, and all that. So that's something that we might not say we're working on the Ridgeton Tales, but we are always working on the Ridgeton Tales.
Yep. So I'll kick it off with watching first. So really the only thing is I just finished the finale of A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. Came out last night. I didn't get around to it until actually this morning. So it was probably the first 5 or 6 seasons of Game of Thrones were awesome, right?
Phenomenal.
What's that?
Phenomenal.
Yeah, just like some of the best TV I'd ever seen. We won't talk about the ending to the show. We'll save that for another podcast. But the Night of the Seven Kingdoms was fantastic. It was more contained. No spoilers or anything, but it kind of keeps everybody like you're in a small location and you really get to know the characters, and it's just a smooth, character-driven plot, and it's awesome. So that's kind of that's pretty much the only thing I have been watching lately. So
yeah, I've been watching Night of the Seven Kingdoms as well. I have not seen the finale yet. It came out last night. I went to bed a little bit early, so I didn't get to finish it. So I'll probably watch that tonight after this. But I agree. I thought it was phenomenal. My brother texted me, and he's watching it too, and he was saying how good he thought it was, and we both agreed that we can't wait to see how they ruin it in season 2. So I'm very excited to see that. Much like House of the Dragon, great first season. Let's see where they go from here.
Yeah,
but this first season of Knights of Kingdoms was phenomenal. Really, really enjoyed it. And character driven, as we'll talk about a lot today, character driven stories are kind of a big interest for me, and I think Derek as well. So what about that's pretty much the only thing I'm watching. It's really the only thing I have time to watch between everything else I got going on in life.
Yeah.
Randomly I might catch a movie here or there, but one show at a time, other than Traitors. If anybody watches Traitors US, my wife and I are obsessed with it, and it's phenomenal.
I have to check that one out.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
It's on Peacock.
Oh, okay. I do have that. There's a bajillion streaming services these days. So that's what we've been watching. As far as playing, I don't play as much as I used to. I've tried to focus more on the writing and kind of cut back on some gaming, but Baldur's Gate, I'll always hop on that every once in a while if I have the itch to do that. I have another group of friends that plays Magic the Gathering, so not really a video game, but it's kind of like a different thing that I do every once in a while. But outside of that, I don't really try not to get caught up too much in games at this point in time. So
yeah, I'm playing absolutely nothing. I do not have time to play video games anymore. So I'm playing nothing.
Yeah. And then reading. What are you reading?
Right now, I am in the middle of the Malazan series.
Ooh, okay.
So going through that, fantastic. It's
Are you on the first book still? No, past
nope.
that one.
Yep, past the first book. We're into it now, but it's as most people have read that series will say, it's hard to follow at first, but then it picks up a lot. And I'd say so far I have the same reaction to it. Interesting, fun. I like it a lot. We'll see where it goes. I'm early on into it. I'll read it to the end. I'm not usually one to start a series and not finish it, even if I don't enjoy it all that much. I'm too much of a sucker to I have to know what happens.
Yeah.
Like once I start something, I have to know how it ends. I have to know what happens to these characters. Even if I don't care about them, I got to know what happens at the end.
Fair enough.
So I'll probably spend most of the year reading through that and reading through a couple other series that I wanted to finish as well. But right now I'm in middle of Malazan. So that's what I'm reading. What about you?
Cool. So I know Ian's been hounding me about Red Rising. So I'm still, I have the sample downloaded. I'm working my way through that. I like to read samples of everything before I actually fully commit. I read a little bit of that last night. I'm also reading Legend by David Gemmell, an oldie from the 80s. I've heard great things about it, and one of the people I'll talk about today used him as an inspiration for his writing. So we'll get to that later. But and then those are what I read physical, and then audiobooks is right now I'm going through the Wax and Wayne quartet from Brandon Sanderson. So
I guess if we're talking audiobooks too, yeah, I'm listening to the second book in the Powder Mage trilogy. I finished the first one pretty quickly. They're not very long. I say that compared to like one of the Stormlight books, which is 40 to 50 to 60 hours or so. These are only like 19 hours or so. So they're not nearly as long. Fun, cool adventure. Same thing. I got to know what happens now. I've started it. I do not do samples. I just jump right into something, and at that point, I'm pot committed pretty much from the start. So, the second book, I forget what it's called. The first book's called Promise of Blood. I can't remember what the second book's called, but I'm on the second book of the Powder Mage trilogy, and so far I'm listening to that. I'm gonna drive to work and stuff like that, so I'm listening to that, and it's been pretty good so far.
Is that Brian McClellan? Yeah, I've heard good things. Yeah, there's just so much to read with what feels like so little time. So eventually, by episode 500 of our podcast, maybe we'll have most of this stuff covered. So, but anything else?
What are you working on?
Oh, Yeah, I almost forgot that.
Plug your stuff, man.
Yeah, just finished book 2 of the Royal Guild of Investigations series. It's going to be like nautical, naval themed. Just the cliff notes is it's a murder investigation by the main character Hal and his partner Viv that takes them on a sea voyage into dangerous territory. So they get caught up in a whole big old mess that it was a lot of fun to write, but it's gonna go. I just finished it, so it's gonna go hide for about 2 or 3 weeks before I take another look at it, get some fresh eyes on it after a couple weeks, and then start editing. But yeah, just started outlining book 3, and then was gonna work on outlining a standalone book for Eridan. So,
which is the world where Richmond takes place in.
Yes.
If that hasn't.
I should have clarified that. How about you?
I am actually working on a standalone in Eridan. I finished the prologue yesterday, and I got about halfway through the first chapter today. I had quite a bit of time to write the last couple of days, so I was able to get that done. I had pretty much all of it outlined. I know how it's going to end, so I guess that's a good point. There's just a little part in the middle I'm still trying to work through how to make it work. But other than that, that's going along pretty smoothly so far. And we're hoping to, by this fall, have book 2 of RGI out.
Yeah.
We suspect, I don't think we've ever put this out there anywhere, but when it comes to the Ridgeton Tales, we're going to divide it into arcs that are kind of not completely standalone, but things will carry over, characters will carry over, but the overall plot of what's going on will be new. That we're going to kind of divide Ridgeton into, and we want to, when we finish an arc, take that, make a physical copy of it, make a Kindle copy of it, ebook copy of it, and then we'll add in some extra chapters, our memories, the flashback chapters, maybe add for a couple more characters in there, do a couple things like that to make it more enticing for people that could read it on Royal Road for free to maybe want to buy a copy of it. But we plan to do that. So that should be out by the fall as well, I suspect, based on kind of how we're looking at what's going to happen with Ridgeton. That should be out by the fall. RGI should be out, and I'm hoping that I can get this standalone done as well so that we can have quite a bit more moving forward for everyone to kind of dive into it that enjoys our writing, our world, and all that.
Yeah. I know Ian and I have talked about starting to think about looking at some conventions, right? We want to get out there and actually engage with people and kind of, talk to them in person and be like, hey, this is what we do, kind of a thing, and just get our name out there. And conventions obviously is a big deal, but it's a process. And when you only have one book out, you're not really gonna get people to come up and talk to you. So that's our plan. Get some stuff out that's good quality, and then hit up some conventions. So we'll let you know whenever all that stuff starts actually happening. But
yeah.
All right.
So we can dive into our topic for today, which we decided on is going to be our inspirations especially when it comes to writing, but also I'd say when it comes to reading a little bit as well, but much more so our inspirations when it comes to writing. What brought us to the point where we're at now, where we wanted to give this a try. We wanted to give it a shot. We wanted to start becoming writers ourselves, specifically fantasy writers too, I would say. Where did we get our inspiration? Where did we end up here?
Yeah.
How did we end up here, I guess I should say. Off the start, from the top, we talked about this, that every fantasy writer in the last 60, 70 years, and probably for another 60, 70 years, will always put Tolkien as a inspiration for why they started reading and writing fantasy. He's pretty much the godfather of modern fantasy. There were authors that came before him, sure, but nobody quite captured the audience and people's attention and everything, and has had such an impact on a genre like Tolkien has with fantasy. So we decided that we're just neither one of us were going to include him on our list, because it would be pretty boring if ever we just said Tolkien and went on a long thing about why and how Tolkien inspired us.
Yeah.
So yes, Tolkien inspired us. It was how I got into fantasy was reading The Hobbit when I was in middle school, and then the Lord of the Rings from there, and the movies came out not long after. And yeah, my fantasy journey definitely started there. Huge inspiration, and when it comes to world building and all of that, obviously, but we're not gonna spend too much time on it because I think it's fairly obvious that if you read or write fantasy, you at least read or heard of Tolkien.
Yep, same boat for me. Movies kind of sparked everything for me. And I've heard people say that I got into writing so that I could do stuff and not be like Tolkien. I'm like, so you're still influenced.
Exactly.
By Tolkien, right? So it's like
100%.
It's people write because they want to show that they can do different stuff that Tolkien didn't do, and it's like, well, still an influence.
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely. Whether it was to be completely different or
yep,
make something in the same vein as Tolkien has influenced pretty much every fantasy work I'd say over the last 60 years. So
he's there.
Tolkien was an inspiration.
Yep.
I'll leave it at that. We also decided, obviously, just by the name of the podcast, just by if you follow us at all, Brandon Sanderson is obviously a gigantic inspiration for both of us.
Yep.
So we're also not going to include him. I think we've probably talked enough about Brandon just from the last episode, but we don't need to harp on that very much. Brandon Sanderson and Tolkien are two gigantic inspirations on us. We wanted to veer away from those two specifically.
Yeah. Hit some more niche-ish type stuff. So, we got those two out of the way. Giants of the fantasy genre. Another giant of the fantasy genre. For both of us, we were both influenced by George R.R. Martin in the Game of Thrones, Song of Ice and Fire, whatever you want to call it. I'll let you kick it off and talk a little bit about how that got you inspired.
Yeah. So, like I said, I started with Tolkien, and to me, when I was in middle school and then moving on to high school, I kind of thought Tolkien was all there really was to fantasy writing, and I thought everybody else was just trying to copy Tolkien.
Yeah.
And copy the Lord of the Rings. So I really didn't pay much attention to fantasy literature when I was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
I played a lot of World of Warcraft, and so it was like World of Warcraft and Tolkien were like my connections to fantasy for a very long time.
Yeah.
Then when I went to college, my major required me to read a lot, but not fiction. A lot of nonfiction. It required me to read a lot, so I wasn't really into reading at that point in my life. Not because I didn't enjoy it, but just because more so I didn't really have the time. And when I did have the time, reading was kind of the last thing I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I really kind of fell out, even the whole fantasy everything, just what wasn't really there for me all that much. But then I may have been my junior or senior year, I can't remember, of college, I walked in on my roommate and he was watching season one of Game of Thrones.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched like 10 minutes of it and I was like, what is this? I have to know what this looks amazing.
Yeah.
And he was stunned. He was like, it's Game of Thrones. Haven't you heard of this? Haven't you read these? And I was, no, I have no idea what this is. What is this? And so I think we sat down and we binged the entire first season in like a day and a half. We sat and we did nothing but watch the first season all the way through. And I was enthralled, so much so that I was like, I'm not going to watch the show. Because I think season 2 was about to start or had started. And so I basically said, I'm not watching this until I read all of these books.
Yeah.
I got to know what's going on. I got to know what happens, as we've talked about. I have to know what happens before I'm even watching on screen. I got to know. I got to. This is absolutely something that I would love. So I picked up Martin. I read them all, and I don't know, the 5th book may have just come out. But I definitely read the first 4 books in the span of like 3 months.
Yeah.
I just burned through them because they're fantastic. They're amazing. And the reason I say it inspired me a lot is because I think George does a great job of, as I'll kind of talk about with my next 2 inspirations, that character-driven stuff really speaks to me, and I think he does a really good job of making really interesting characters and blending that with his good world building as well.
Yes.
So I think that was really kind of because Tolkien, for all his positives, I wouldn't say character building is the top. that might be controversial to say, but it's not. He can write good characters, but not to the depth. And once again, Lord of the Rings are far shorter. I think all three Lord of the Rings is as long as like Wind and Truth is a single. So a lot less time to work with everything. And I know his expansive world building and all his world building is second to none.
Yes,
but I think character work may have been, if you could find a criticism, which once again might be controversial. I wouldn't say that character development and all that was quite as strong for him. And then when I read Martin, and I you really get to know these characters, down to like even what kind of foods they like.
Yeah.
You learn their sleep schedule almost, like very, very character driven with really strong world building as well. When I kind of saw those two mixed together, I was enthralled completely from the beginning and really couldn't put them down and burn through them fast. And it's definitely been one of those things that stuck with me, mainly because it got me into the broader fantasy world of what else is out there that I missed out on. What else is out there that I don't know about?
Yeah.
And I'd say that's stuck with me ever since, basically. I guarantee you there's more works out there that I haven't read yet. There's more stories I've never read. I got to read them all. I have to know what happens. I got to know what happens, man. And so from there, I remember Googling as soon as I was done, like best fantasy works, top 10 fantasy works of all time and things like that. And luckily for me, I'm not including this on the list, but this is just sort of my progression through fantasy. Luckily for me, the next book I picked up was The Name of the Wind, which you haven't read that. Phenomenal book. So as you can see, my introduction to fantasy was a bunch of series that are never going to be finished. So that really, drove home to me that when I start a story, and all my stories that I've started so far, I know where they're going to end. That's important for me to know how I'm going to end the story.
Yes.
And so I guess that would be another inspiration for me from both of those works, is know where your story is going to go. Don't write yourself into a corner where you've made this really awesome buildup and then you don't know how to quite like stick the landing. But yeah, I'll leave it on to you, Derek.
Yeah. No,
Talk about George.
My experience with George R. R. Martin is the same. I watched the first season of the show. I had never read any of the Song of Ice and Fire books, and as soon as I finished the first season, I was in the same boat as you. I read, I think there was just the 4 that were out at the time.
I think Feast for Crows. I don't think Dungeons and Dragons had come out yet.
No, I don't think so either. So I read everything that was out, and then kept watching. I think like season 2 was probably pretty close to coming out, kind of like you, whenever I picked up the books. And I think I had told myself that I was going to at least read the second book before I started watching the second season. So I didn't read all of them before I started the second season, but I had read at least what the material covered or whatever. And then, when the 5th one came out and I bought it day of, read that, and I've been waiting for 6 and 7 ever since. So, but
that's a discussion that's been beaten to death at this point. I mean,
I love George.
Let's be honest.
We'll
pick something up here.
We'll talk about George in another podcast. But I think, like you said, Tolkien's world building just on a different planet. I honestly would put George R. R. Martin as probably number 2. Maybe him and Brandon Sanderson are pretty, like, maybe 2A and 2B, at least for me. George's world, very medieval, but just like the lineages and all the history and the battles and all that stuff.
Absolutely.
Kind of
what house is here, and that house has been here for this long, and before that it was this house, and this person married this person, and all this.
Just that kind of stuff. I love that kind of stuff. So like looking at family trees and learning the history through just going through a family tree and seeing what each person did. Like that's kind of where I nerd out a lot. So between Tolkien and Martin, I get all that. You don't really get that so much with Brandon, but the world building he does is so different. It's right?
different. Yeah, you're not learning. We don't know the the Cullen family tree back 7 generations and stuff like that, which is where George would go with it. But I think but Brandon's world building is almost, it's weird. And, we said we weren't going to talk about Brandon too much, but, look the name of our podcast. Obviously we're Brandon fans, but Brandon's world building is still as in depth, just on a different plane of existence in depth. Almost. It's as good, but a little bit different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's the point of, like the Stormlight is that we don't know. Right. So, that's kind of stuff you learn as you read, and that's what makes it great. So, but yeah, diving into George's world, reading those books and all that, it was awesome. And getting to see characters that, I think that almost was the world's introduction to like the morally gray character in how ruthless a world where literally almost anybody and everybody is morally gray. One day they'll, be your best friend, and the next day they're stabbing you in the back. It's like.
I would also say it really set off the chain reaction of the no character is safe.
Yeah. Yes.
I think everybody, myself included, the first season when Sean Bean, I'm drawing a blank on this character name. Ned, yeah, when Ned Stark gets beheaded, and spoilers, but I mean it's been out for 15 years, so I think
2011 starting here.
Yeah. And the book came out in like 1997, so I think at this point, if you haven't read it, that's on you. But when Ned Stark gets beheaded, you really didn't think that was going to happen. You thought there was going to probably be this like right before the axe falls, something happens, and like then the Red Wedding and all that stuff that happens. I think it was really the start of like character, and I think J.K. Rowling did it a little bit with Deathly Hallows.
But that was kind of like the ending of everything, though, right? Or at least like the ending of that story, right? So it's kind of like you expected some of that stuff to happen, or
like I think Hedwig gets blown up in a gets hit by a spell and blows up, and I was kind of whoa, people are actually dying now.
Yeah, but to have Ned Stark is literally a main character through the first book. Like, man, this guy's awesome. Like he's honorable. He's trying to do the right thing. Like, and then stuff starts to go like, oh no, like, no, he'll get out of it. And then he doesn't. And it's like, okay, cool.
I definitely think we saw a lot more of that in media because it was so popular and because it was so well done.
Yeah.
With George, I think there's not very many foreshadowing for it. Maybe if I went back and reread it, maybe I would see it. But, it'd be hard with what I know how it happens now. But like I said, that really started a cultural and media trend of, killing off what you think would be main characters.
Mm-hmm.
So, inspirational all around.
Yep.
Ned Stark dying.
Ned Stark, the honorable, the most honorable of honorable men.
Okay. So my number 2 is not fantasy at all. Way off what you would think. And, when I was thinking about this particular subject matter and why I chose this book, it kind of took me around in circles a little bit, mainly because this book has had such a gigantic, it stuck with me. I don't know how else to say it, is that this particular story really stuck with me and still continues to. That's In Cold Blood by Truman Capote. If you've never read it, I highly recommend it. I am a sucker for true crime stuff. I listen to a true crime podcast pretty much all the time. I always have a true crime podcast going in terms of like, sometimes I get in the car and listen to a book. Sometimes I get in and continue on with my podcast with that. So I'm really, really big into true crime. And that started here. I have no interest in writing true crime. I have really no interest in writing any sort of, I know RGI is Derek's thing, but no sort of detective thing is ever really going to be my thing. But I enjoy true crime. And this book particular, if you've never read it, and this isn't spoiling anything, you can read this on the back cover. The book is about these two guys. I think it was it's a true story. Two guys in the 1950s that went into this rural Kansas farmhouse and murdered the whole family. And the story really, I'm assuming, I don't know this for sure, I'm assuming the author interviewed these guys in prison and kind of got their stories, because it really follows the murderers more than it follows the detective that's going after them, and the murderers, and it almost reads like a nonfiction. It's so well done. You think like it's a non, but it is a true story. And I'm assuming, like I said, I haven't looked that much into it. I'm sure there's controversy surrounding the book and stuff like that. I don't know anything about that. I'm assuming though, just by how it's written, that the author did interview the two murderers, but that I think they were both put to death. Spoilers. This book's been out since like the 70s or something. So once again, if you haven't read it, I guess I said go read it if you haven't. But spoilers. They both get put to death at the end of the book. But you almost what I said, I had to think about why this book has stuck with me, and I think one of the reasons is because once again it's almost a character driven nonfiction book, and like I said, character driven stuff really draws me in. Knowing a character intimately, and so you get to know these two murderers intimately. By the end of the book, one of the murderers, I remember one of them you just don't like. Period. He's a piece of trash, horrible guy. The other one you almost start to have sympathy for, and you're almost empathetic to his plight a little bit. He had a really rough childhood. He had a learning disability. He was kind of taken advantage of by a lot of people, including his co-murderer. So by the end of it, you're almost feeling bad for this guy. And then you remember what he did. Like, oh no, never mind. This guy went in and like murdered was an accomplice and pulled the trigger to murder this entire family. Like, he's not a good guy. I'm not going to have sympathy for this guy. But I kind of looked at it and thought, really good ability from the writer to draw you in, to take this person that committed this horrific, terrible act. And you're sympathetic towards him at the end. When he's being put to death, you almost feel for the guy a little bit. And so I think that's what stuck with me so much about it, was the writer's ability to kind of get into the two people's heads that did this and kind of make you see it through their lens a little bit, and kind of come to I don't want to say an understanding, like I'm condoning what they did or anything like that. What they did was terrible, it was a horrific act, but the writer's ability to get you to that place to where you're, like I said, where you're almost a little bit sympathetic. So really, really good book, especially if you're into true crime. You've probably read it already. If you want to branch off from fantasy at some point and maybe read something else, it's a quick read. It's only a few hundred pages. It's not very long. Once again, it speaks to the author's ability in a short amount of time to get you from these guys are horrific to they're still horrific, but I almost forgot that at the end for a second, because he's writing at least one in a very kind of sympathetic manner. So really good book. Check it out. It stuck with me mainly because of the writer's ability to play with your own emotions a little bit, play with the reader's emotions a little bit. That's not easy to do. Anybody who's ever tried to sit down and actually write something knows how hard it is to try to convey emotions, and to not just convey emotions, but draw emotions and reactions from the reader is a very hard thing to do. And I think that's what kind of stuck with me about it.
Yeah. I haven't read it, but I know you've told me if I was not going to read something fantasy to check that one out. So it's another thing on the TBR eventually. Moving into my number 2 is a series called The Faithful and the Fallen by John Gwynne. He's from the UK, and his inspiration, I know he heavily drew inspiration from David Gemmell, who wrote Legend, which is the one that I was reading. And I can see, having started to read Legend, I can see the inspiration. But John Gwynne is like a medieval weapons guy. Like, he does reenactments and all kinds of stuff like that.
LARPer.
Yeah. So he really, combat was kind of where I got inspiration from him from. Is like how like reading the way he did combat was like, man, that was like, I felt like I was there. Like, he'll break it down to,
this is John Gwynne you're talking about?
Yep. Okay. John Gwynne. He'll break it down to, like individual moves, or like, historically accurate things as far as fighting. And then he'll kind of pull back and you'll see, the larger picture, but then he'll come back to kind of like the main character. And you're thrust in there. But The Faithful and the Fallen, outside of the combat, it's like a hero's journey, like a coming of age hero's journey type series. It's 4 books. First one is Malice, and it kind of catches you off guard a little bit because there's so many characters, so many different POVs that as you're kind of going through the first book, you just got to kind of struggle with it a little bit and get into it, because once it gets going, like it's fantastic. But there are a lot of people to get to learn and to get to know right off the bat. So I know that's some criticism that he's gotten from that, is just, there's just too many, but it works out as you go through the series, because things happen and it's a little easier to follow. But I'd say I got The Way I Write Combat as an inspiration from John Gwynne and The Faithful and the Fallen. So
cool. Nice.
You up?
Yeah, I'll go with my last one. We decided to keep to 3, just keep it a little bit shorter. But my third is the First Law trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. Mainly, once again, and anybody who's read it would say the same thing, the character work. The characters in that book, just every single one of them. I was excited to read every chapter because of, you read one person's point of view, but then want to come back for a few chapters. And when you come back to them, you'd be so excited about it. Particularly for me, Glokta.
Yeah.
And in fact, I think our latest Memories chapter was directly inspired by Glokta. If you've read it and you've read First Law, you would pick up on that, actually, I'm sure, just because he's a just fabulously written character. Once again, the same kind of thing as I was talking about before. He's not really a good guy, but you kind of have sympathy for him, and you kind of root for him, even though he's not a good dude at all.
Yeah.
At least I did. I don't know how other people feel. Maybe other people read it differently. But by the end of it, I was, maybe it's because I just enjoyed how he was written. I enjoyed his chapters so much that I was rooting for him by the end, even if he wasn't a very good guy.
Yeah.
And so his character work in those books and overall is second to none, almost, I would say. But also, and I was going to say this a little bit about George too. I think kind of the hallmark, what makes it and shows how good of writers they are and how good the characters are, is that the worlds in the Circle of the World and First Law and Westeros very much mirror our own.
Mm-hmm.
The North is cold and brutal. It's Sweden and Norway. The middle is where most of the main characters are from, is Great Britain, medieval Great Britain, and then the South is sand and the Middle East and North Africa. It's very much how our own world is. So I'm not saying it's not good world building. It is good world building. It's just, there's already a formula in real life for that type of thing.
Yeah.
But to me, that speaks to how good everything else is. And I'm not saying that, who am I to criticize George R.R. Martin or Joe Abercrombie? They're wildly successful fantasy writers. But what I'm saying is that just shows you how good everything is in the story. Is that, like, the North is cold, just like Skyrim, just like Westeros, the North is cold and brutal, and this story and this story and this story. Like, okay. But the fact that you don't even pay attention to that when you're reading it, you're just like so enthralled by what's Logan Ninefingers doing next? What's, what's Glokta doing next? What's Baez doing? And so that just to me shows how good they are at their character work. Yeah. That they can do that. And the second thing, and I'm maybe mild spoilers, so try not to spoil anything. What really stuck with me with First Law, because this is how in my major by myself series that's outside of Rigidin and everything that I'm working on, kind of how I want to structure it is that you do not see the ending coming whatsoever. You cannot guess what. I'm sure there's somebody out there that's going to say, "Oh, I knew it was coming," but okay, yeah, sure you did, but I did not see the ending coming at all, and you kind of figure out that everything that's gone on in the whole story isn't exactly what you think is going on, and there's something else at play that all those events are kind of playing into. Like I said, I don't want to go much deeper than that. If you've read it, you know what I'm talking about. Yep. But the ability to do that, to kind of in the ninth inning, flip everything on its head a little bit, is something I love. And the ability to do that, and kind of the patience to do that too. Yeah. Because I know when I have a good idea in my writing, I want to get to that good idea. Yeah. I want to get there. And so the ability to basically, for 2.5 books, be telling this one story, and then in this last little bit, it's like, actually, everything you think again. Boom.
Yeah.
Is stuck with me in a way that was like, that's something I want to write. I want to write something that when somebody gets to the end of their overall thing, they put it down, they go, holy crap.
Yeah.
I did not expect that whatsoever. That threw me through a loop. That's how I want to write a story.
Yeah.
Really good characters and an ending that makes you say, what the heck?
Yeah. And it was like, not every book, but most books have that twist,
right.
Whether it is in the climax of the book or it's, like right at the very end or whatever. Like that's what makes a story good, is like a reveal of something like this and that. So
the payoff.
Yeah. And, with Abercrombie, it wasn't so much as like a payoff as it was just kind of like a slap in the face. And you're just like, oh, okay. Yeah, that was pretty cool. Didn't see that coming at all.
No.
Like,
and then everything makes sense.
Yeah.
So, like so many things are like,
oh,
okay.
Yeah.
That's why that happened.
Like,
got it.
Like, I didn't feel like it wasn't
cheated.
Yeah. It wasn't like, they just said, oh, and everything isn't real. It didn't have that.
Oh, they were dreaming
effect.
the whole time.
Right? Yeah. So
they've been dead the whole time.
So it wasn't like the great. I just got, I followed these characters that, everything I read didn't, it's fantasy, so it didn't happen anyway. But like, you invested so much time into it.
Still real to me. Damn.
It is. It's real. But yeah, no, it was great. It was a great series. Yeah. I'm glad you bullied me into reading that one too. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have to
bully Derek here into reading things. I usually get the things first, and I'm like, you have to read this. He's like, yeah. I'm reading, Fairies by the Firelight. I'll get to it. And then I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, no, read Red Rising. And I'm saying to everybody, read Red Rising. Read Red Rising.
Yeah.
Read Red Rising.
So
eventually he comes around and he's like, that was great. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I should have read it 6 months ago when I first told you to. Mm-hmm. Then we could have talked about it.
Yeah.
Now I've already moved on. I'm telling you to read something else now. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to talk about First Law anymore. I want to talk about this because I'm on this now.
Yeah, that's fair.
But that's how it works.
You read faster than me. I do read faster. I don't read fast.
He writes faster than me.
Yeah. I have more time. Reading's like the only thing that you really can do. Yeah, but
apologies, we had a technical difficulty. We're back.
That was my fault.
We're back. Thank you for sticking with us.
When you plug in a computer, you need to make sure that the power strip is on, or the laptop will die. So just my last topic here.
Your last inspiration.
Last inspiration would have to be Star Wars and Harry Potter. I'll lump them together. It's because they were a large part of my childhood, kind of before Lord of the Rings came about. Not so much as like writing inspirations, but just kind of put that creativity, in my brain, if you will. My dad introduced me to Star Wars. We would watch the original trilogy all the time. It was like my favorite summertime thing to do, is to kind of hang out in the basement and watch Star Wars. I wanted to be in that universe. I wanted to be a Jedi. I wanted to do all that. And that's kind of what originally sparked like the creativeness, I think, with me. And then as I got older, I read some of the Star Wars books, those, some of the expanded universe stuff before they became legends. And then I think it was about 4th or 5th grade, like literally like the year before the Lord of the Rings movies came out. I got into Harry Potter because my 5th grade teacher was, hey guys, we're going to read this book in class. And we did. And I just kept going. So I kind of grew up with Harry Potter and Star Wars. Yeah. And then, Tolkien and Lord of the Rings was like a year or two later. And I mean, those are all my creative influences there. So everything just kind of hit me all at once when I was like 10. So that's it for me.
I mean, I definitely, I would parrot those and say that those were big influences on me as well. I think, once again, they're probably up there with Tolkien, that most people are, were inspired, our generation. Were definitely inspired. Everybody from our generation has read or watched Harry Potter. You'd be hard pressed to find some. You might have some try hard out there. It's like, oh no, I don't like it, I'm gonna watch it. But for the most part, everyone from our generation has watched Harry Potter.
Yeah.
I think some of us that are, that went on to write took things from
Oh yeah.
those worlds and what we liked about them. There's also great world building from J.K. Rowling.
Yeah.
I mean, and simple,
Yeah.
but very effective world building from J.K. Rowling. Definitely something that is hard for me to do. When you actually sit down and try to write, you realize how much harder it is to get across concepts that you might have like perfected in your head. But then when you sit down actually at that keyboard and you go to start writing, you're like, I can't get this idea across like it is in my head.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to do. And it's really impressive how like cool and kind of in-depth of a world Rowling wrote for not a ton of words in comparison. Once again, if you're going to compare it to Wheel of Time, you're going to compare it to Malazan, you're going to compare it to Sanderson, some of these big, long, epic fantasies, which I guess it's not an epic fantasy, it's a young adult story, but still, just the effective world building she used, I think is definitely something that I would strive to be able to be that concise with my world building when I go to write, because I find it very difficult sometimes to put those thoughts on paper that I might have. Up here, I got it, it's perfect. Everyone's gonna love it, it's gonna be a hit, I'm never gonna have to work again in my life. But then when I sit down to type, I'm the dumbest person alive, and I completely forgot about what I was trying to say and what the concept that I wanted to get across. So, and then Star Wars, obviously, I love Star Wars as well. Yeah, I mean, I can go on. We can do a whole episode on Star Wars. How about that? And how much we both love Star Wars and how much it inspired us. So I think that's definitely a topic we could talk about for a couple episodes. Yeah.
Well, cool. If you're still here, thank you so much for all three of you for sticking it out here and listening to two hopeful authors talk about their inspirations. So
check us out on Royal Road.
Search up the Ridgeton Tales on Royal Road. There's going to be links in the description of the video too.
All of our socials. Instagram.
Threads.
Instagram, Threads. Facebook.
We have
YouTube, TikTok.
We're not as active on TikTok as we are the other ones, but we are there. So
So check us out on all those. Like he said, the links will be in the description for everything. If you do happen to go read, watch, whatever, listen, we're on Spotify. Ridge and Tales also on Spotify. If you're more an audiobook person, you can follow us on there. Please leave a review, leave a comment, something so we know how we're doing. That would be really helpful for us moving forward to know what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong. Even if your feedback is something you didn't like, let us know. This is dog. Leave it. Now,
let us know.
Let us know how we're doing, because we'd really like to know what we could be better at. So we appreciate anybody that has supported us, watched us, read us so far. Thank you so much, and tune in next time.
Signing off.